Well, 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 well. Look who's laughing now. No one believed in my boy, but he believed in me, and I believed in him. And together we made top 8 at this past weekend's calling at Pro Tour Singapore. I absolutely love this deck. I love Guardians. I'm very happy to have shared this journey with not only my boy Jarl, but also my teammates, my friends along the way. So I am here to make a quick deck tech for everyone here to maybe share this joy with you as well. So the main reason I think that you should play Jarl is it has one of the highest skill expressions out of any decks in the current meta. It does play on a different axes than other decks, where most of the decks right now are more aggressively slanted or board presence slanted. This is more on the defensive side, that you are going to be getting lots of value with your defense and being more powerful in the second and third cycles. If that is something that interests you, to learn how to block better, to play for a longer game, to get more game in every game you play, this is going to be a deck for you. I do also believe that this is a great meta pick because it targets a lot of the top decks. Some decks that I think it's favored into: Gravy, Verdance, Syndra, Slippy, and also Prism. I think that you are favored in all of these matches. I know some of those are kind of hot takes, but I'm going to go over some of those matches with you later on after I go through the deck list. So the first question that I think that most people are wondering is, why Barkskin over Tunic? When I was playtesting this deck after Count Your Blessings got banned, yes, I was playing it before, just transition to it now, you lost a good reason to have the extra resource. This deck is pretty cut and dry. There's very few cards that cost one resource. Even things that do, like flexors, you really want to be using it multiple times. So having the extra resource really just kind of went to waste. One of the best uses for Tunic was for CNC Pummel. By cutting Tunic, I also cut Pummel because there's no reason to run the equipment piece just for that specific combo when we could just increase our defensive power, lower our offensive power, and just cycle for second and third cycle. Uh, the reason why I picked Barkskin over Tectonic Plating is the additional value you get in defense in the long game. The extra resource with Seismic Surge can come up sometimes, but it really would only come up with Mangle. But that does not fit the cost curve of what your deck is trying to do. With Mangle, you really want to be using your gauntlets to power it up, so you want to pitch an Earth or an Ice card or an Earth Ice card to increase the power of your Mangle. Together, that is a 6 cost curve. The one additional resource, the cost reduction doesn't really help you there. When you did run Tunic, you did have the plays of a 2-card Mangle, but it's not as valuable as having additional defense in your deck, especially since you are running so many non-attack actions. A good portion of the deck are non-attack actions, so the Barkskin embodiment of Earth really comes in handy. Other than that, our equipment suite is pretty straightforward, pretty normal for the most part. Uh, Flexors is just the best leg piece you could be running. Uh, you are running Titan's Fist. I know some lists run the Terra weapon. I think how we have it constructed, we do have more 3 costs than Earth Blues, so Titan's Fist is just slightly better. You definitely could make the deck where the other hammer is better, but this one is better in the current configuration of the deck. One of the reasons you should be looking to play Jarl as well is Stalagmite. This is one of the best equipment pieces in the game right now. It has 3 block in total, but giving a frostbite against certain decks, super important. Decks like Syndra and Slippy that don't have a lot of blues, being able to completely stop their turn or getting an entire extra card is very important. It gives you a lot of value. Because one of the reasons why Jarl is good is not because the numbers output like other decks, like you see a KO. KO is good because it has very good numbers. Jarl is really good because it limits your opponent's numbers. As the game goes on, your opponent's numbers diminish and diminish and diminish and diminish. That is why we are running this card. When you look through the deck list, you should see that the point is not to necessarily kill our opponent. This deck is constructed in a way that fatigue is kind of in the forefront. Unlike the Count Your Blessings versions, this is usually fatigue with damage in the late game. You're not going to be racing them. There's some matches you kind of do just because they refuse to block your Titan's Fist. Most of the time that's incorrect, but you will have increased power late game with Felling to the Crowns with Oaken Olds. That is how you win. One of the main game plans in the deck is preserving your life total. Yes, that means blocking. I know a lot of people hate doing this. This is not the deck for you. If you like blocking, this deck is great. You are going to block. You are going to save life to have more powerful cards than your opponent later in the game. So most of the deck, I would say, is pretty straightforward. There's nothing that should surprise you too much. We have 3 Command and Conquers. We have 3 E-Strikes. This has not been in any of my versions of Jarl previously. I think with Gravy around, E-Strike is very important. You need it. I don't think you can beat Gravy without E-Strike. In addition, it's really good with Everbloom Life, which we'll get to later. But being able to put another powerful attack back into your deck for second and third cycle is very, very good. Then we have Felling of the Crown. Felling of the Crown is like top 2 most powerful cards in the game right now. It's it's a 2-card 11. You can't really complain about that. The only thing is you want more of them. If you'd run 9 of them, you would, which is why we do. And then we got Mangles. We're running the 3 of the Mangles, clearly to blow up their equipment. It's one of the main purposes of the deck. You get a lot of value that other decks don't by killing equipment pieces that some decks rely on. Syndra relies on Flick Knives. Flick Knives allows them to push through mask triggers. You are there to stop them from doing that, and then Syndra is pretty much a mediocre deck. It can still put out some numbers, but without the threat of a mask, it's pretty easy to beat them. You just outvalue them. You just block them out. They're not very threatening. Oaken Old, this is going to be one of your finishers. You're going to be looking to set this up. But, of course, every single deck is going to be running 3 of these. And then we have our defensive reactions, 3 Rootbound Carapace, 3 Shelter from the Storm, 3 Sink Blows. I did recently go from 2 Sink Blows to 3 Sink Blows to help the Slippy matchup. I think that helped a lot over this past weekend as I played quite a few Slippies. It just really gives you the flexibility of how you're blocked so you don't overblock things. You block exactly when you need to. Very important in this meta. We only are running 2 sigils. This could be 3 depending on how you want to construct your deck. I'm on 2 so that I can run other cards like E-Strike, the extra Sink Below. Sigil is really good in the deck. Don't necessarily want 3 of them, but it does give you the flexibility if you're stranded with additional cards. First turn of the game is also really good. Also, just having the deck life is very important when you're in like the fatigue matches, especially a deck that's going to be looking to push breakpoints at the end of the game. Sigil of Solace is very good at protecting you from those game states. We're only running 2 Unforgiving. You could also be running 3 of these. Personally, I think 2 is enough. They're not as good as defensive reactions. but it is a 4 block that tutors out card. It's very high value if you're looking to mangle someone on the turn. You don't always get that because you do need a little bit of setup. They don't always line up properly, which is why we're only at 2. You could definitely go up to 3 of them if you're if it works out for your deck, if that's how you like to construct your deck. There's nothing wrong with it, but here we decided only with 2 with the sigils to give some room for some other cards. One of probably the biggest surprises in my list is going to be this Plowwinder. I only run 1 Plowwinder. To be honest, I'm probably just going to cut this completely. I don't think this card lines up with the game plan that we currently have set up. Most of the time, you would be using this against like aggressive decks that are looking to set up 5-card hands. But what I've been noticing is decks are less willing to set the arsenal and really just push the 4-card hands when they have the value to do so. When they're not being disrupted, they just kind of push out their cards, trying not to give themselves an arsenal. I've been just kind of moving these out. I was at 3, moved down to 1. I don't miss it. It's probably going to get cut. It was good a couple times when it came up, but really just having the yellow isn't really helping us very much. I'm probably going to be removing this, um, but you can definitely play it. You can play 3 of them if you really like. It's just like one of those cards where I don't think it fit with the deck composition very well, which is why I'm going to be removing it. But if you move some cards around, definitely be playable. And then we move on to our blues. Some of these blues are kind of interchangeable. Macho Grande, Glacial Footsteps. Um, these are going to be poppers with a lot of closing power in certain decks, in fatigue matches and prism and anything that you want to popper or just throw a big number at the end of the game. These are going to be really good. You can swap around the numbers. Um, I would probably stay with the 4 poppers or maybe even go a little bit higher. Um, but that's going to be a little hard because you do want to keep your earth and ice count high, which is the reason why I'm only on 2 Macho Grandes. You only really need the 1 for late game pitch stack, and you want to keep your earth and ice count high. Uh, you really kind of want to balance when you can, which is also why I'm only running 2 Autumn's Touch, which is funny because it was a banned card at one point, um, and we're only running 2 of them instead of 3 of them. But we're never attacking with them. They are a 3-block, but with current game design, we have more Earth 3 blocks, which is really nice. We got Crumble to Eternity that sets us up the combo. And most importantly, we have Everbloom Life. This card I think is really important in the game plan altogether. Gaining the extra life, very important in certain matches. Just cycling that life gain, getting an Earth card in early on your like first turn 1 or turn 0 is very good. Putting an E strike back into the deck, or even putting Everbloom Life back in the deck really helps in some fatigue matches where you may be stranded with a whole bunch of cards that instead of just losing a card value, you at least gain 1 back and you don't have to use a card for it. That it just keeps your deck value high and you gain a life, just kind of goes towards the game plan of staying alive, going for the second cycle. Um, Frozen to Death, this is usually what we're going to use to blow up equipment pieces. A lot of times Mangle doesn't line up very well. They block it out. A lot of decks still put like defensive reactions against Jarl because there's still like more aggressive builds going around. So a lot of times you're trying to set up Frozen to Death from your arsenal. Usually doesn't line up in your hand, and if you do so, it will usually require you to take a lot of damage. So Frozen to Death will allow you to, from arsenal, will allow you to just like have 2 other cards, a card to pitch, a card to fuse, and hopefully you're going to arsenal that ice card. That's really good with things like Winter's Bite, Channel Lake Frigid, Crumble to Eternity if you're trying to blow up another equipment piece. It's really nice kind of setting it up that way. Um, and then Terra Sunder is just going to always be just the all-star blue in any Guardian deck. Fruits of the Forest is unbelievable. This card is absolutely busted. Uh, it gives you such high reach in your life total. It is insane that you get to pitch stack these for later in the game. If you get stranded with too many cards, you just get to pitch it and gain some life. If you need to 2-card fuse and you have Fruits of the Forest, you just get to pitch it, gain the extra value. By pitch, I mean discard. You get to discard it, gain the life. It is just unbelievable. It's a 3 cost for hammer. It is just does everything that you want in an earth card outside of blocking for 3. But most of the time, you get to pitch this for later when your opponent's not going to be able to fully utilize their hand, so you get to keep more cards. It's unbelievable. It really helps with the game plan to really um, kind of get back into the game in the later stages. A lot of times you will be like ticking down in life in a game, and then eventually you're gonna just kind of creep back into the game using your armor, using life gain. Just like they're gonna run out of reds. Cards like Fruits of the Forest is gonna help you kind of take back the game there. We're on one season tomorrow. This card is really good because it allows you to arsenal any junk blue. As long as you know that one is coming, you get to clear that arsenal. And this is also very good against decks like Cilio, uh, against Verdance, against Kano, anything that is trying to go above you on damage, as well as any deck that has on hits or daggers. Anything that's like throwing a 1 at you, Season Tomorrow is really good about clearing that up, allows you to block a little more efficiently. Um, One note is if your opponent does think that you are fatiguing them or that they're going to be fatigued, sometimes you use Seeds of Tomorrow and they just end up passing their turn. Be mindful of that. Um, that like if you have plans to block with your cards to be efficient, keep in mind that they may just realize it's not valuable for them to continue to attack. So just something to look out for. Um, this card, I think, is still you still should play at least one of these. It has a lot of really good matches. Some matches is not as good, but no matter what, having this flexibility in your deck allows you to kind of convert like a clunker. Like if you just kind of get stuck with an opposing visage in a hand, uh, like you ripped all their cards the turn previous, and you got to hold your cards. You just want to arsenal literally anything, knowing that you haven't seen Seeds of Tomorrow. You can just park it there, keep it there. If you don't want to use your crown, you have your Seeds of Tomorrow that will kind of bail you out that instance. Um, our last main deck blue we have is Winter's Bite. I'm running 2. I might go up to 3. It was really impressive all weekend. This card is very good. Um, Early game, it just forces a card out of their hand, which is fine, which is what you want to do. It doesn't help with like the fatigue aspect directly, but limiting the damage threshold that your opponent can put on you really helps blocking more efficiently. Uh, it just prevents them from damage stacking you, gives you a little more space if you're trying to set up like a felling or something like that, uh, which is really nice. Later in the game, after you've blown up an equipment piece, or if they've blown up their own equipment, giving them a frostbite can really shut down certain decks. Just giving them a frostbite, make ripping a card out of their hands, sometimes can completely shut down their turn. They just like do not have any profitable plays, uh, and it really puts them in like an awkward position. This is just a free just blue action. This doesn't cost you any resources. It has go again. It's one of the very few things that we have that has go again. So it's very, very, very useful. A lot of times you are just pitching this for late game. It's not a 3 cost. Doesn't really work very well with Hammer, but it's very good with Channel. You can also bring this back with Everbloom Life. Most of the time you're just getting E-Strike, but one of the games I did get this back because it was in the graveyard, so I just went ahead and just brought it back, and you're not going to be upset. This card's like really, really good in the late game. Um, this is where the deck list gets a little interesting. So going card for card here, we have Crush the Weak. What this card does is if you do 4 or more damage, attack actions with 3 or less base can't be used by your opponent. This specifically is targeting 2 decks, Syndra and Slippy. More so Slippy than Syndra. You're not really worried about the Syndra matchup as much, but it's still good. You still bring it in. It's still a 3 block. Um, Anytime that they give you space, like against Syndra, if they give you space to use something like Crush the Weak, it's really good to like get cards out of their hand because sometimes they will um, try and set up a 5 card hand, and that will leave you stranded with an extra card because you're expecting another chain link. They don't give it to you. So one of the ways that you get to block is you get to keep the Crush of the Weak as the last card that you're going to block with. You keep another blue. The You're going to plan on swinging the hammer with the blue, blocking with the Crush of the Weak. If they don't come at you, you just send the Crush of the Weak. If you have it busted through armor, they're going to use a 3 block, and they're going to use their legs to block the 7, so it doesn't get the crush. But the main thing is you kept them off the 5-card hand. That was the most important part. Uh, just really stopping them from setting up a big turn on you is very important. Next we have Midas Touch. Uh, this is kind of a weird card. You play it against Gravy. It's okay against Gravy. It's better um, against Humperdinck and Chum. Um, but it's kind of clunky because it costs 1. It's better if we run Tunic. You go ahead and you play it anyways because it can get you out of some bad situations. Uh, but the main purpose here is against Prism. This is just a failsafe against Prism. You are already favored into Prism. You shouldn't lose to Prism, but just in case the game has gone very poorly for you, they really got to push a lot of attacks. You didn't try your poppers early. They set up the loop. They have a lot of cards in their soul. This breaks up the combo. You get to just kill their angel. Hooray! You are out of the loop. Your opponent's going to lose most likely if you get out of the loop. This is very hard for your opponent to set up anyways, but this just helps the matchup. Also, it's an extra yellow, so uh, if if your opponent goes to play library, you can Midas Touch, discard another yellow to blow up library, which is kind of cool. Again, this doesn't come up very much. You are already very favored into Prism, but it is there just in case. It's very hard to lose with a Midas Touch in your deck, and with how this deck is already constructed. Um, we are on to Remembrance. This is one of the key pieces to the deck in certain matches. This allows you, against decks like Slippy and Fatigue matches, to block, if needed, with your power piece, with your Oakenol, with your Felling of the Crowns, and bring them back for second cycle. If you don't have the space to pitch stack your power pieces in first cycle, you can block with them and then use Remembrance to bring them back to increase the power level of your deck. It also, obviously, it helps with Fatigue because it adds additional cards. The main purpose is you're selecting power cards to be put back into your deck. So you can be running up to 9 Felling in the Crowns. It's very, very good. This card is, I think, one of the reasons why this deck is as good as it is. Uh, it just really helps in certain matches to continue the power level of your deck that you otherwise wouldn't have, because you wouldn't have the space. If you draw all 3 Fellings before you decompose, you're not going to get any value, and it's going to be very hard to close out the game. Remembers kind of makes that not happen as much. I'm going to skip over the next two. I'm going to talk about Blizzard. Blizzard, again, is just for the aggro matches. I don't really have to explain why. This is very good. You could also run more of these. I don't like to run too many no block cards. If you draw 2 of them, you kind of just die against aggro sometimes. If they have a lot of if they have a lot of resources, you just kind of like wasted 2 cards for like nothing. You converted their dud hand into a good hand essentially. Um, I like the one. Giving them a frostbite and making them pay 2 is very good against Slippy, very good against Syndra. They don't have enough resources to really do that and have a productive turn. Even if they do, you kind of stop what they're going to do. And like Slippy, for example, is that they were probably going to try and mark you with the dagger. They can't do that anymore. They just pay the resources, kind of just break up their turn. It's also an instant, which means you get to put it into your arsenal, which is really cool. Just having an effect that's a non-D reactor in your arsenal is very valuable. Same thing with Snag. You are going to be putting a Snag in like Guardian matches, usually. Earth uh, is mostly in here for Slippy. It's one of the reasons why it is the reason why it's in here is for the Slippy matchup mostly. They're going to try and, obviously go over your defenses, whether for be bonds, prognosis, any on hit, infiltrate. Snag is there to just kind of bail you out. Um, and it really deals a lot of deck damage to your opponent as well. They may use 2 to 3 cards to really push this up. Knowing that you have it in your hand, you get to kind of bait them um, by either like just blocking with like 1 card and just like preventing all the buffs. Really good. I don't think I would play this deck in this meta without at least 1 snag. This card is also decent into Earth heroes. I usually, for decks that I'm going to be boarding up in cards, um, this is definitely one of them. Um, for like felling, this does just like turn off the additional power from felling and plow under, which is really nice. So you get a 4 block in that way. So it's like a blue 4 block in some situations, which is really nice. You also want to run this in like Guardian mirrors because a lot of Guardians, we all love pummel. This is great against pummel. Just stops the additional power, um, and so it really bails you out in some situations. Um, on to Yellow Rootbound Carapace. I know a lot of people were kind of confused why this was in the deck. The idea for this in Jarl came to me when Jude said a comment of you don't care about the 4 block on your defensive reactions. All you care about is intervals of 3. And that's when I'm like, oh my goodness, he's so right. We should just be on Yellow Rootbound Carapace, at least as an extra defensive reaction. That's all you care about. If you block for 3 and they buff it by 3, this covers it up perfectly. We don't care about the the 4 block. You're already covering it up. So this just blocks it out perfectly. In addition, it turns on your phalanx earlier. One of the downsides of the deck, you don't have very many decompose abilities that you want to use. So the extra carapace allows you to get those online faster, which means you can start felling um, in first cycle sooner, which really gives you a lot of space. Limits what your opponent can do in the first cycle. It's very good. Uh, you are going to be boarding this in to uh, obviously like Slippy. You also put this into Syndra. You throw it into Syndra just because it allows you to block through your arsenal. It's very good. It's one of the reasons why defensive reactions to this deck are super good. One of the main things you want is to be putting a power card or a defensive reaction in your arsenal. The best thing you can do is have a defensive reaction in your arsenal. Power cards can be pitched for second cycle. Defensive reactions allow you to get to your pitch deck, but you don't want to just use your defensive reactions willy-nilly. You don't want to use them to prevent damage. You really want to make sure you are using it to stop it on hit. Most important thing, to prevent on hits. That's what this deck is designed to do. It stops decks that are under rate trying to hit on hit. It's great. It's what you want to do. Moving on to our next card. Probably the first person to top 8 a calling with Scar for a Scar yellow. The reason why I chose this is because a yellow pitches more than a red in some situations because you are mostly using this against Gravy. Some fatigue matches you board these in as well, but this allows you to use Command and Conquer. That's it. You get to play your Command and Conquer. You get to use this with a Remembrance to Swing Hammer. It's better than a red in most cases because this is a card for Gravy. It's the same as the red. The only time this is not as good as the red is if specifically they have 2 Sawbones out. You probably did something wrong or something just not going right. And then you just wait a turn because you killed your 1 Sawbones. That's probably going to be the ally you're killing first, anyways. And then you just do it the next turn. It's completely fine. If you want to run the reds, there's nothing wrong with running the reds. But the yellow um, has done me good. I didn't play any gravies all weekend, which is really strange. None of the PT, none of the calling. Um, I think it's a good matchup. Um, I didn't mind if I did play gravies. I think that I win that match. Uh, but it's just funny because this is probably the most like wild card in the list. Never got to really use it against Gravy, but it's still here. Probably need more testing to see if it truly is overall better than red. Might not be, but it might be. It's been fine in my testing. I haven't really missed the red at all. So that is kind of the decision for the yellow scar for scar. And yes, I know it's spicy, but I think that if you don't try things that are spicy, you won't land on things like Bowlander. You have to try these things, even if everyone else thinks that you're crazy. Everyone laughed at me, but here I am. I was, almost victorious. Made the top 8 with this shitter in my deck. Uh, always kind of believe in your assessment of your deck. Why cards are in your deck. Uh, and moving on, we have our AB package here. So we have Hood, Boots, Heart of Ice. This is one of the better AB packages out of Heroes right now. In these matches, we get the benefit of we get to keep our arm piece, which allows us to pitch stack in certain matches. Uh, Heart of Ice is probably one of the most unique abilities in the game. By activating it, it makes your opponent's cards cost 1 more to activate on your turn. Against Kano, that means that in response to this, they have to combo off or they're not going to combo. So you don't have to commit additional resources or cards to attack them and then get like blown out by a combo. They have to do it then. You get to keep the cards in your hand to help protect your life total. It's really good. It's one of the reasons why I beat a Kano in the calling. It's really wild. Um, it You probably still shouldn't beat a Kano, but it is possible. This is the reason why. Um, and then you also get to blow up their Striders, which is a very big deal. But there's a lot of Kano decks that will just blow you up even without comboing you or anything like that. Um, and then we have Sledge. Sledge is very good in obviously in like fatigue matches. The one downside is we are not running Tunic. Tunic is bad in this list outside of Sledge. There's no reason to run Tunic just for Sledge, especially when some of these Sledge matches um, we're going to be running Heart of Ice anyways. So like Florian, for example, like we're going to be running Sledge because we want we have the Heart of Ice for AB and with the Sledge. There's no reason Tunic if we're going to be doing that in the same match. It just doesn't make any sense how you construct your deck. So even if Tunic would be good in this situation, it just doesn't make sense to keep it in that deck list. Um, but Sledge by itself is going to help you win like fatigue matches. I beat a Victor day 2 aggro blaze. Um, this just helped me kind of grind him out. Just it's just such a high card equity weapon that almost no other decks can really compete with. It really takes like them banishing cards from the top of your deck or really like damage stacking you to kind of like overcome that disadvantage. So that is the basic outline for the deck, the reason why I chose some of these cards. Um, and so I kind of want to go over a couple theory things, a couple matchup things. Um, First off, I talked about it a lot. I do think that the 3 top decks are Gravy, Sleepy, Syndra. As seen as the numbers, those are going to be the most prolific decks that we see. Um, I do think that we're favored into all 3 of those decks, which is one of the reasons why I think that you should be playing this deck. I don't think that this is a super rogue deck that you shouldn't expect to see. I do actually think that this deck is very good. It's one of the reasons why I chose this deck. It wasn't just a comfort pick. I do think it has its position in the meta. I think that people just really they don't know how to play this hero and they don't like the block. It is lower on the power level, but with Yarrow, you get your power from lowering their power. That you get to push down other people's, output, channel like Frigid with on hits. That's how you win the game. You're not going to blow them out with like, crazy combo turns. That's just not what you're going to be doing. And you really get to overall prey on a meta that is not prepared for this deck. Other matches that you're going to probably see, this one I think is very important to talk about, is Verdance. Uh, there is a lot of talk of how do you beat Verdance. Verdance should be a almost 0% matchup. I beat a Verdance. This is how I beat a Verdance. I didn't attack. That's all you have to do. You just actually have to not do anything. You don't do anything. You sit there, you use your gauntlets, and you just pitch stack the entire game. They attack you, you block them. You preserve your life, they can't kill you. The reason for this is because they are stuck with defensive reactions in their hand that they can't play. And even if it's used as resources in the fatigue game, they're going to be stuck in their deck at the end of the game. This allows you to pitch stack your entire deck. In addition, your life total is high. Even if they combo you, you can't die. Most of these lists are on Waning Moon. If they're on Waning Moon, they cannot kill you if you block their attacks. All you have to do is it's as easy as just blocking everything. You get Everbloom life. In an infinite game, you have inevitability of gaining infinite life against them. That's all you have to do. It's just in your cycle. Just keep on getting life, keep your life total high, and they will not have the damage, even if they use all of their potions. They're not going to win. The game plan is you blow up their headpiece, you blow up their legs, you block their attacks, and then you set up disruption when you need to kill them. Because you do have to eventually swing into them to win the game. What you're going to have to do no matter what, they are going to get those defensive reactions out of their deck. But what you want to do is use Heart of Ice. So if they do use defensive reaction, they're probably pitching another defensive reaction. Or they're pitching a blue to pay for like both of them, and then they can't combo you. And then you pitch stack more disruption further and further and further. And then when they're down to a few cards and you see where their combo is going to happen, you play Channel Lake Frigid and they can't combo you. You Oak and Old them and they can't combo you. You Felling of the Crown and they can potentially combo you, but depending on how low they are at that point, uh, it's not going to be enough to kill you. It is a 0-win situation for them if they are on Waning Moon and they put defensive reactions. If you've noticed that they haven't pitched any defensive reactions, if um, they haven't really sunk any cards, like they'll probably have E-strikes. They'll probably put defense, even if they have defensive reactions, they'll probably put it at the bottom. But if you aren't seeing defensive reactions being pitched, if they're using the card in their arsenal, you might have to pivot into attacking, maybe even bait out to see if they really are on defensive reactions. But most are going to be. They can't cut enough cards, so the defensive reactions are stuck in their deck the entire game until you actually start attacking them. But by that time, your deck is so powerful because you pitch stacked like a good person would with Oak and Olds and just fusing with Crumble to Eternity. They can't do anything. You put their combo pieces back at the bottom of their deck. They take a whole bunch of damage, and you just cycle through this over and over and over again. And that's how you beat Verdance. We already went over how to beat Kano. The same thing. You just threaten with Heart of Ice. That's all that you really can do. You just protect your life total the best you can. It's still like a pretty bad matchup. But how to beat Slippy, uh, we definitely want like defensive reactions. Like the main thing is do the math. It's simple. Just do the math of the potential that they are going to put on their attack action. Think of the outcomes that they can have every single play. Try to save your defensive reactions until you absolutely have to. Um, make sure that you are not opening yourself up to a really bad Codex of Frailty. If they are pitching Codex of Frailty into second cycle, you win the game. They are going to use their codexes, and you are going to get your Felling of the Crown, and you are going to win the game. You want to only use your armor when you absolutely have to cover up breakpoints and on hits. That is what your armor is here to do. You are here to protect your life and protect your game plan with your armor. Later in the game, it allows you space to block, to have things like Felling in the Crown, Oak and Old, so you can go from on the defensive to on the attack very quickly. That is how you get better at this deck. You learn how to block correctly. You learn how to use your armor appropriately. These are the most important things in these fatigue-esque decks. I wouldn't call this deck 100% pure fatigue. That is not exactly what you're trying to do, but you are trying to grind them out of reds. That is kind of the main aspect of this kind of defensive deck. Tried to do that in my top 4 matchup against Shoma. Unfortunately, I was not able to get there. I had some bad variants going my way, but that is already a pretty bad matchup. I think it was the only deck I'm not favored in the top 8 that was left, but I would have to play him eventually because he obviously would have beat everyone else, but um, you know, you are here to grind. You are not necessarily here to full fatigue. You want to just play an efficient game plan, outvalue your opponent by limiting their overall power. Uh, I think I already kind of went over the Prism matchup a little bit. Um, you you should win most of the matches. I have actually never lost to Prism on Jarl. You have a lot of poppers. You just have to pop things. You have to block efficiently. They are just going to run out of heralds eventually. You run them out of attacks and you win the game. That is one of the more fatiguing matches that you will have. That in Gravy, that you are just fatiguing them of actions to play. uh, they're usually never going to run out of cards until the actual very end, but they are going to run out of allies or they're going to run out of angels or heralds. That's the point that you're getting to, and then you're going to kind of turn the narrative on its end. So when you're playing against Prism, be very mindful of their tricks. Um, be very careful of throwing a command and conquer to pop something important. With their Halo, they can search out the Figment to make this a 5 and not a popper. Also, they have the instance to do that as well, which is one of the reasons you're going to throw Remembrance back. And when you remembrance something, you bring back Mangle. Mangle is a 8. It is very hard for them to deal with an 8. They can't -2 it. It's still a popper. They have the -2 plus -1 it. That is a lot to ask for. And then usually they can't follow that up with too much else. They already use a lot of resources to do this. Um, and so even if they get one Figment out, um, it's not that big of a deal. You continue to play your game plan. You kill auras, you kill angels, and that's it. You just play a very slow, grindy game. Just run them out of resources, and those are kind of the some of the main um, matches. And then we also have Syndra. Don't want to forget about Syndra. You again stop on hits, which is mostly a mass trigger. That's really the only on hit that you really care about. The main goal is to blow up Flick Knives as soon as possible. That is the only way that they win, is if their Flick Knives stays around for too long and gets them too much value. Other than that, the deck sucks. The deck can't do anything against you. You just block them out super efficiently. You throw one frosty little bit at them and they just completely crumble. They just can't do anything in a lot of builds. There are more blue heavy builds that can deal with it, but it's still they run 6 to 9 blues, and that is it. So it is very easy to disrupt them. They're one of the easier decks to disrupt, which is why it's one of our best matchups. That being said, I did lose to one in the calling. I think some various things went my opponent's way. That's completely fine. You can't win every match, even if it's very favored for you. Um, but you should win a vast majority against Syndra as long as you pay attention to the mask trigger, you block well. And again, that's going to be the hardest part of this deck, is learning how to block well. I can't describe it quick. It takes too long to go over. but it will just take practice. Um, but overall, those are the main matches that you're going to be seeing. You're just ally decks, you fatigue them. Aggro decks, you are just looking to block them efficiently. Block them efficiently, send a hammer. That's kind of most of the game plan. Felling of the crown, just to kind of finish them off and really soften them. But thank you all for listening to this deck tech. Feel free to reach out if you have any other questions about Jarl, anything I can go a little more in depth in. If you want any stories, anything from the calling, how I beat certain decks, please feel free to contact me, message us via Twitter, Snapdragons. We love to hear any feedback. Um, Again, thank you. This is my first deck tech. It's a little bit of rambling, but thank you all again. And, keep on playing Flesh and Blood and having fun.